Hello, hello. Yeah, I think we've got enough sort of information now, and it's probably still morph as the meta changes because blue steel is very much an answer deck. We are very reactive. We react to things with all of our steel removal, and then we finish the game off with the dime or any of our big questers once we've sort of stabilized and won the board back. So yeah, but I still think there's quite a lot of data, and looking at other players' lists. From their testing groups and from my testing group, we're sort of coming together to have very similar lists of, 90% matching lists, just a few preference changes. But this is into Steel Song, and yeah, it's hard to say right now because we sort of need to know where exactly they're going with their deck because they might change it for other matchups and that might affect our performance into those matchups, or they might not change it. We'll see. Um, but yeah, the new issue with the deck is I think even in past sets it was understated actually how powerful their deck was. On the play, we should be fine. We should be able to control the board for a couple turns, get our ramp locked in, and then say if you wheel, you wheel. If not, we'll just keep playing our stuff on curve. Um, but on the draw, it's always actually been fairly tricky. They get to have their singers drive first, so they can do things like wheels. If we don't stop their shift lines, they can get their wheels out. They can wheel and flood, and we saw even at the end of set four, people opting to go for the Perdita builds with the Lawrence and the Blues and stuff like that. I haven't really seen Baloo much in set five, but I think that's because of the unink count that Baloo brings, and then the value the card brings isn't as high, or isn't as much as you need. But yeah, the issue we've got with the deck right now, I think once you get to the mid game and to the late game, you should be fine. Once you get a Cogsworth established, a Chiempo, Tinkerbell, all these big characters, you'll be able to control the board and you just have a stronger board than them. Grab your swords, let it go. Along came Zeus, Baboom will fire the cannons. All those things can just keep them in check whilst you set up your aerial that will just turn sideways, or you'll try and get a dime, or you'll try and get a Tamatoa. Tamatoa is a bit risky in the matchup, but aerial I find is performing very well. Once it's played, it's pretty much locked in 5 lore, and if you have enough time ink to play the dime and tap it, there's 10 lore, so you really swap the tempo around once aerial's there. They're going to want to deal with it because, if you've been at 0 lore, you're only 4 sideways turns until you can win the game. So yeah, I found Aero was very useful in the matchup, and as I say, the mid to late game we come back quite strong, and we have a very good answers for it. But the main issue resides in the early turns. So turn one, they've now got their Daisy cards, which just diabolically shouldn't have been printed. It's insane. If they should have printed it, they should have printed answers that were better than just red can cease human cease. And also that they can flood and play two on turn two if they're lucky. Theoretically, you could go turn one daisy, turn two, play two more daisies. You got really good draws, but that could happen. Um, and we've just got to accept that that's where the game is at right now. So Blue Steel's in a fairly rough spot because it doesn't really have that many good answers for it. So the first approach to this, like I say, I'm going to mainly focus on those early 1 to 3 turns. The first approach is, say you're on the play, you can set up a Captain Hook, or even on the draw, sorry, you can set up a Captain Hook, and they can play their Daisy. They'll turn it sideways. You run a Captain Hook in, and you baboom it. That will deal with the original Daisy. You won't be in an amazing spot because you've got a 1 health damaged Captain Hook, and it's turned sideways. And they're most likely going to follow up with a Vanessa or a Smee or just anything that's really strong as well. They can start getting their singers out. So fairly in those 1 to 3 turns, if we try and match them, and we say we're going to try and fight your early characters with our early characters. We've really only got Captain Hook, Smee, and then you can throw in some babooms or fire the cannons. So I just feel that we never really match them, and we're putting too much energy into trying to win a losing battle. So in this original one, this is one of the lists I've been trying to run, and I just feel it didn't give me any good results, and I didn't really like it. Is you Captain Hook, and then when they turn sideways, you baboom it, and then you can lock in your Mickey. So you get to control a bit of the board early on, and then you get to get your ramp locked in. On the play, I think it's fine because Mickey is fine. You can just go Porp, Smee, Mickey, and then you've actually got a fairly strong board. Cogsworth, they'll probably try Strength or let the Storm Rage on you, but you've got your ramp locked in, and you have 2 characters on board. So that's fairly decent approach to it. On the draw, it feels very rough. You'll go Captain Hook, and then you might be able to deal with one. They'll play something even stronger than Captain Hook, take him out, and then you'll try and get your ramp down on 3. And by that time, they've just gone so wide, they've just gone so impressive that it's just not, you've just lost that battle so much. So yeah, this was one of the lists I tried, and even in testing, we didn't even look at the top end. We were just cutting Tamatoas to make room for hooks and stuff like this. So it's not even that refined. I didn't feel it was very strong. It just felt like getting your ramp in on turn three on the draw just felt so rough. And on the play, you basically had to just hope you drawed well enough to win them to win the matchup. So I just felt this build wasn't working. I still think it's fine. I think it's viable. Mickey's still good. To get your SME guaranteed on, well, not guaranteed, but you could put other two cost characters in there, and you could go back to the original. Just Porp, two cost Mickey, especially if you're playing into like a red purple meta where people are still playing Flins and stuff like that. I'd say this deck this is fine. Like I said, it's not refined, but yeah, you could still do a Mickey build, and I think it could still work. But for me personally, locking in the ramp that later on in the game, it has felt quite rough, and it's not felt the right thing to do. So yeah, this is where I've landed on the answers, and as I say, I test with and play a lot online, very varying skill levels. Playing against some of the people who are sort of very high up on Connect, playing with some people who have made cuts through different Discord groups, playing locally, and this has felt the best approach to it. So the way we sort of look at it is, turn one, they're not always going to have Daisy. Sometimes they will. Sometimes they might set up a shift line. Sometimes they might set up a Cindy. I found a lot of them as well. I don't know where the Stillsong players are going with this, but it might be a preference as they set up a turn one Cindy instead of the Daisy. I think that might be so you turn one Cindy, and then turn two you can protect your Daisy with the Cindy singing songs and stuff like that, or singing your bare necessities. But I think just getting the Daisy out there straight away, get your lore locked in, keep applying the pressure, because we're constantly in this matchup just going to have to react to everything they do, because they're just going to be playing stronger characters at very cheap value, very cheap cost. But in this build, yeah, you've got the fire the cannons, so if it's anything else besides Daisy, you can just ping it. This is on the draw, of course. On the play, you probably might want to keep. You actually will want to keep fire the cannons as well. But yeah, so just on the draw, you can just ping anything that's possible. Otherwise, you just try and get a Porpsicle set up. So the main line is you have turn one, Porpsicle, fire the cannons, depending on what's the board state is in, and if you're going on the player on the draw. Turn two, you Tippo. Even if you've got SME in hand, you Tippo, and that's mainly just to lock in your ramp and just to say, okay, so you're going to be doing what you do very well with your deck, which is you play these cheap characters and turn sideways. What a skill-based deck. And then we are going to do, we're just going to lock in our ramp because that's what we do well. We get ramp. So you play your Tippo out, you get it locked in, so you're guaranteed 4 ink on the following turn. And then the following turn, you have a few lines that you can play. Depending on how they've done it, what I found sometimes is quite impressive is to play Pete, and then with that extra ink, you can either fire the cannons, a shift line, or one drop, or something that's possible to be fire the cannons, or you can play a Porpsicle just to get a Porpsicle set up for your Hiram, or just to set up for healing or something like that. And then the following turn, you can set up a Cogsworth, or you can just do a hard cast grab your swords, and just really equal out the board and say, hey, our thing is that we ramp into these bigger answers quicker than you. So we're just going to do that, and we're not even going to worry about the Captain Hook and stuff, because the Captain Hook's going to get let the Storm Raged on. Once it's turned sideways, it's the freest kill of all time. It is just not a particularly amazing card right now. But yeah, even with this, so you've got Porpsicle or Fire the Cannons in turn one for whatever reason you need to do that. Turn two, just lock in the ramp. So I even just hard mulligan for Tippo. Quill is always a risky play into Amber Steel. It always has been because they've got bare necessities. I haven't seen a lot of Bengers. I think they're just not opting for Benger. I think some of them might do because their red-blue matchup is so bad that they will just opt for a Benger to try and win that one and slow it down. Maybe take out a Quill or take out an item, just for their draw power. They probably won't be. They might take out a dime, but they probably won't be because if your opponent's diming, you've probably lost that matchup anyway. But yeah. Lock in that ramp, say, hey, that's what we do, so we're just going to get 4 ink, so we're going to get closer to those 5 and 6 drops characters as quick as we can. That turn 4 can be sent, as I say, for a repeat, and then that extra ink can be spent on a 1-cost action or an item. But we can also do things like, if they've set up a singer, they've set up like an aerial, or they've set up anything you don't like, even if a Daisy's running away with it, and you don't have any other answers to spend, you've got a couple of Zeuses in there, so you can just be like, and a hardcast Zeus. And just slow you down, and then the following turn, you'll lay your Cogsworth, and then slowly you'll see the tempo swap, because they'll be going, I play like a Lawrence, or I play whatever they play. Even a Rapunzel is annoying as a 1/5 that's going to be hard to deal with, but it's not going to be a very strong character on the board. You can be like, I set up a Cogsworth, then I set up a Chiempo, or I set up a Tinkerbell, or I'm just going to keep layering stronger characters than you, and gradually you'll see the tempo swap back to you. They will get a large increment of lore, they will get to 11, 12, sometimes they get 15. That's just going to happen. Sadly, that's just how strong their deck is with the cheap questers that they have. But what the most important thing I've found is to try and deny them a shift line or an ability to sing Whole New World. Um, if you want to look at it in a very practical and easy term, is try and force them to hardcast Whole New World because in this matchup we're both wheel decks, but they are very reliant on Whole New World, whereas we have Hirams and we just have draw from Hiram that's it's better, so you'd always opt for a Hiram in this matchup. The first person to wheel was going to be rough for them. But what you don't want them to do is to sing Whole New World from a character and then have that extra ink just to play wide of characters because they'll have, a couple daisies and then they'll play like a Smee or something like that or a Lawrence and they'll just have like a wide board which you now have to deal with. If that does happen, that's not the end of the world. Like I say, you've still got Grab Your Swords, you've still got Tinkerbell. Try and stabilize as much as you can. And then just win it back because eventually you're playing with a higher ink value than them. You've got more steel. You haven't got more steel removal than their steel songs, but you've got good steel options and answers and stuff like that. If you play an aerial, sometimes you can match or even beat their lore. Just by saying, well, there's an aerial here, and I've got 9 ink next turn. What do you think I could be getting? And you can do things like that, and you can really just flip it back on them. I'm trying to not sugarcoat this matchup at all. It is rough. It is going to be a hard matchup for you. On the play, I think you're fine just to go Porp Tippo. I've even sometimes, if they've had a slow opening and they haven't managed to get the daisies out, they've just managed to get one questers. I'll just play a Hiram because Hiram will give me a couple card draw, and then I've got now a singer to actually could sing Along Came Zeus. It's very rare you want Hiram to sing Along Came Zeus because you want him to draw, but in this matchup, I feel like you kind of have to play almost dirty in the way that you're going to play. So yeah, if you can set up the Hiram, be like, I don't mind you getting a little bit of lore from whatever you have on board, but the next turn I'll sing Zeus, then play a Cogsworth or play a Chiempo. I'll play over what I want to play. And really just flip the tempo back on them and be like, well, now my stuff's better than your stuff because you've just been investing in cheap characters and I've been investing in bigger characters. So I'd say looking at Dime as a finisher is not the best solution in this matchup, which does bring into question why we're playing Dime as much. But I think because the red decks are so popular, and we're just going to lose board hard to them, we kind of have to keep Dime in, and that's sort of where I'm at. There is an approach with McDuck Manners, but I don't think you'd play the McDuck Manners to help you for this matchup. This matchup's very much you're playing the role of the control player, and you'll just want to kind of beat them out of the game. Keep their singers from some stopping singing is a big part. So yeah, I'll just run over again what that is, and then I'll go for a little bit of a Mulligan guide. So on the play, you're fine to do sort of Porp, Tippo, play anything that's of value which costs 4 ink. If that is a Hiram, great. If that is a Pete, that's awesome. If there is a Pop School, that's good as well. And just mix and match, put things there. Sometimes, not in this match, I wouldn't suggest it, but other matchups, I've even just gone double Smee and then the next turn recovered with a Hiram draw or put a Cogsworth up and then managed to sing a whole new one. I think with that 4 ink, you can be a bit more flexible with it. We've got a lot of combos of things that fit together, which is great. But you've locked in your ink. You're saying, I'm going to be playing with an ink advantage for the rest of this game now. I'm also on the play, so I'm just going to get to bigger things and bigger stuff than you. And I'm just going to be playing them and singing them. And I think that's been generally the way I've played it, and it's been a lot better. If you missed the Tippo, it's not the end of the world. You still have a Smee to rely on. Hopefully you get that. If you miss both, you're in a kind of a rough spot, but hopefully you could salvage it with just play some items and maybe chip away at some characters with the fire the cannons. But yeah, generally speaking, I heavy mulligan for the Tippo because it's just so important. On the draw, we can do the same, but of course we have fire the cannons to react to anything. If they turn one Cindy, you can hit them. I think it is sometimes risky to keep fire the cannons in an opening hand, but if we're going to play it, I think it is good because what you can do is if you don't need it on turn 1, you get the Tippo turn 2, and then you can spend some ink. You can even Smee and pay a fire the cannons, which isn't the best, but you've got a 2 cost on board and you played fire the cannons and chipped something away. So you've sort of took away a little bit from them, and then you've advanced your board. To the point where Pete is actually quite useful in this matchup so much that you could go to 4. As I say, this is a very boilerplate. This list isn't teched any direction right now. Steel Song maybe is the most direction it's been teched into, but it hasn't got any major direction. I think 4P is probably where I'll end up playing, but right now 3 has been fine. As I say, if I don't get the Pete, there are other options for me to play other things as well. So yeah, that's sort of the way I've done it. And then once you get through that like early sort of tussle, deny their singers. I have to keep stating that you've denied the singers on the play and on the draw. Make sure they don't get the aerial to sing. Make sure they have to hardcast it. You might see Naveen around. I'm not seeing Naveen as much, but if you know you're aware of Naveen, and maybe by the time that I record this video and you come to watch it, Naveen is very popular again, which I don't think is going to happen. You can just Pete, just go into that going, right, well, I'm going to make you sit on those 2 uninkable cards in your hand for a turn, and then let me come back to me, and then I'll play a 5 cost character. Then you can Naveen, or however you want to approach that. Daisy is always going to pretty much be exerted. There's no reason for them to sit on her and not take the law. A Tipper and a Pete is 4 damage, so you can take out a Daisy with that as well. So yeah, you just kind of want to be like, you're going to play your cheap characters and turn sideways. I'm going to get my ramp locked in. I'm going to get to my mid-range, my strong part of my deck, and just take control of the matchup again. They will get a large increment of lore. Sadly, it's going to happen. Again, if by the time you watch this video, Flutes is back in the meta, I think I've seen Flutes here and there, and I think they're teching him in for red-blue, but I don't think that's that scary. I actually kind of prefer it if someone's playing Flutes, because what that's going to do is increase the unink count in their deck, and then it's going to make it so their mulligans can't be as aggressive. Because if you've got 4 daisies, 3 to 4 flutes or whatever, you've got your whole new worlds, you've got your Zeuses, you've got your latest Storm Rage on. If you wouldn't play Naveen in that, but if you had Naveen, if you had all these things, you've just got so many uninkables that they can't aggressively mulligan as hard. And especially as they don't have like things like Tippo or Quill to get rid of uninkables, that's where we get that value of we can play a lot of uninkables and we can put them into the inkwell. It's similar to the way Red Blue plays. They play like 20 uninkables because they don't. They can put a lot of that in the inkwell. A lot of that uninkables is just ramp cards anyway. So yeah, this is sort of my approach to that. Going off at a tangent, but I think yeah, that's the way I've been playing it, and that's the way it's given me the best results. If we see some bigger developments, I'll of course go over them. But right now, it just seems Stillsong is in a very good spot. It's a very good deck. That's just the way it is. That's the way it is. Blue still has so many great matchups, so many good traits for it. We can also just tech heavily for things, and just if we're expecting a certain meta, we get some data on what the meta at like smaller events are. We can take that into regionals as well, and change the list around and say, well, I actually want more Petes because I always want to hit that Pete on turn 3, or we can add more steel removal because I just want to clean up boards. Or maybe another deck's actually shining so much that it puts Steel Song into the dark again. I don't think that's going to happen, but then we can change the list in that direction as well. But yeah, I think 1 cost Porp or Pete. 1 cost Porp or Fire the Cannons, depending on the play on the draw to react. Tippo to lock in your ramp. Turn 3 to play the value that you have in your hand, if that is a Pete and then a chip damage from a Fire the Cannons, or if you only got a Smee and then something else, play that. If you've only got a Smee, you play a Smee. If it's a Hiram to get the draw and get a 1/6 that could sing Zeus potentially set up as well, that's also good. Also, that draw is just going to be nice. Yeah, that's sort of the direction I've been going with the list, and I'll just sort of cover a sort of nice mulligan. This is the right one. Yeah, this should be. Yeah, and it's also can't be understated how good Chiempo has been in this matchup. He's a 4/7. They don't have any bounce, any way to return that card to your hand. Sometimes I'll even opt to play Chiempo and then set up a Cogsworth to sort of protect it. That's just a good way to play. 4/7, it's going to basically trade with everything in their deck besides Robin Hood. But yeah, I'm just going to stop talking about how good Pete is. Chiempo is. So in this hands, yeah, I think if we're on the play, it's risky to keep the Quill, and especially as I want the Tippo, it's arguable that you would keep the Quill. But I think I would want to send it back because I just end up never playing it. If I don't have character-based ramp, I just feel so behind not having a thing on the board. So I think I'd send it back, and then hopefully we could draw into a Tippo from the Fortisphere. I'm keeping the Pete as well because if we do get the Tippo, then I can play that line. Also, it's just the character and it's uninkable because if this hand ends up being really bad, and we're going turn 1, turn 2, no character, turn 3, I can be like, right, here's a character, and we can slow things down a little bit. So yeah, I mean, coming back, that's not the best hand. Sadly, we tried to be a little bit risky, but you'd ink one of the Tinkerbells, get the Fortisphere down, hopefully get a Smear or a Tippo or just something else to play. Even a Fire the Cannons as well would be quite nice because then you can react a bit more. If not, if you get the coil back again or just anything, just try to get to that cog swap a little bit earlier, establish that. Having stuff in your hand that's not characters is fairly useful in this matchup as well because I think I have 32 characters in the deck, and if Daisy's going to be flipping the top of your card of your deck, you've got basically a 50% chance, depending on what's been played, what's been drawn already. Those percentages do change, but it's the general ruling is about 50-50 that she's gonna bottom deck something, and kind of want grab your sword. Sadly, in the hand of the opener means it's probably gonna get wheeled or just not be in there by the end of it because of inking or something like that. That's a very rough one. I'm gonna just do one again. All right, we got a nicer one there. Yeah, so maybe I can demonstrate how good it can be. So yeah, I think we want to get rid of that. I might want to keep a Smee. So what we want to do is go Porp, Tippo, Pete, and then maybe fire the cannons or keep the Smee. I mean, what I would do here though is keep some cards that we can say they're fine if I play them, fine if I turn into ink as well. So I think I would just send one back, and that's not that bad really. So on turn one, I don't think we need two Tippos, so I'd ink a Tippo, play a Porpsicle. Well, we're starting to get the hand going. They return with Daisy. You draw a card, ink something, play Tippo, which is really good. And then next turn you compete, and if they play something for fire the cannons, fire the cannons. Otherwise, play a Porpsicle. The next turn, hopefully you've drawn into a bigger character, a 5 cost. If not, play Smee and then use the rest of the value in your hand. Yeah, and just keep going from there really. And of course, you might get some draw from the Daisy. And by that time, you've got Tippo Pete take out Daisy. Hopefully, as I say, you've drawn a 5 cost or a 6 cost or just something else to apply the pressure. They're going to be like, right, now I'm going to start reacting. They'll start singing and stuff like that, which will be painful, but it'll be like, as long as you're not questing, I'm sort of all right with this, because we know a wheel's going to come at some point. And that's the thing, if you deny a wheel, it will come eventually. You both play, there's 8 wheels in the game, there's 8 whole new worlds, so eventually one of them will get played. So yeah, hands will be toxic and be quite volatile. They'll keep changing all the time. Don't be too precious about what's in your hand because it's going to go eventually. And as I say, their main draw aspect is will. Don't let damage sit for too long. If you've got something exerted as well that has only 3 attack, we'll be wary about that because if they have a 4 health character, they might run it in then Rapunzel it. So just be wary about all those things. But as I say, even the free card Rapunzel draw, they draw their free cards, maybe ink one and then play one, or what I mean, they'll just try and flood it. It won't be as good as the Hiram draw. It will still be painful, but it won't be as good, and they will eventually want to wheel. So yeah, on the draw, I think I would get rid of a lot of this stuff. We didn't hit ramp, but we get that extra card draw as well, being on the draw. So again, I'd say play the fire the cannons. I'd keep the Pete. We send that back. And to be fair, in my opinion, that's not a bad hand. We'd start with ink the Simba. We can react to something, hopefully. If they end up doing a Cindy or they try to set up a shift line. If not, we've just got these fire the cannons that we can play later on. And maybe we draw a Porp School and we play that turn one, if not. But yeah, I'd say the Pete to the Tippo to the Pete. Hopefully we draw one of our 1-cost items because then we can set it up for the Hiram to draw as well. Hopefully we get to do that on turn one. Or we can go Tippo, Pete, play the 1-cost item. Next turn Hiram, and then play another fire the cannons. It's kind of odd. It's mix matching, putting things together, trying to get the max amount of value out of everything. Of course, on the 5, we'd like to play a 5-cost character, but if it was fire the cannons Hiram, that's not bad either. The card draw's nice. Having a 1/6 that could sing Zeus, that's okay. It can't be understated. That's actually quite useful in this matchup. Overall, into playing Lorcana, you don't want Hiram to be singing Zeus, but it is something it can do. If you really want something to sing Zeus and get the max amount of value of singing Zeus, it is probably do Tippo into Tala. I had played Tippo into Tala quite a lot, but the issue is you've got a 3/3 and they've got, strength, they've got answers for it. It's probably not going to stick. They might singlet the Storm Rage on and then, player let the Storm Rage on, or they might even just Zeus it just to make sure you don't have a singer set up. So yeah, sometimes I'm just using the value of Hiram being a 6 health character just to get something to stick on board. But yeah, so Tala's not too bad. It is a bit of a gamble if she's going to stick, and then body-wise, you basically just want her to sing Zeus. She's not likely to trade much. But yeah, once you get past that, I've mainly talked about the early part of the game because that is where the impact is on the matchup. And then after the mid game to late game, you should just be playing Tinkerbells, Cogsworths, playing higher value things to sort of upset them. Also, as well, I don't have the card in my list, and I'm not seeing the card appear in many lists. I'm seeing it less than 0.5% of people's lists, but Mufasa is decent here, mainly because World's Greatest Criminal Mind does not answer it, and none of their steel removal answers it. They are able to Queen Quest play World's Greatest Criminal Mind to take it out. That's pretty much their only out to Mufasa. So you can get in a situation where if you're prioritizing the ramp quite hard, you just ramp high, play a Mufasa, and that's a massive tempo swap for them because now you've got a 4/9. You get to double play 2 worths of ink on that turn. As again, I don't think Fast is an amazing card, just generally, so I don't play it. But you can flip the tempo very much with Mufasa in this matchup. So if Steel Song is becoming quite a pain for you as well, definitely look at putting 1 or 2 Fusses at the top end of your deck. Just to sort of be like, we've ramped, we've controlled, and now here is a 4/9 on the board, and he's just going to start winning the board quite hard. But as I say, in the matchup is very control based. Dime is what I would do is quest sideways, and then if you have an area on board and you can afford to play a dime, tap it, please do. But spending a turn to set up the dime to win over an X amount of turns is quite rough because a lot of their characters are cheap and they'll just turn sideways with them. But yeah, as I say, you're playing control in this matchup. Try and just get as much value out of those early turns as you can, as they will be as well. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this.